In a time of loss, one woman's faith would lead her to a new beginning.
Do not urge me to leave you.
She chose love and loyalty over everything she knew,
Let me go to the fields.
and in return received a future she never expected. From tragedy to redemption, this is the story of Ruth.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land of Israel. A man from Bethlehem in Judah named Elimelech took his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, and went to live in the country of Moab to escape the famine. They hoped to find food and a better life there. But tragedy struck in Moab. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, leaving her alone with her 2 sons. The sons married Moabite women. Mahlon married Ruth, and Chilion married Orpah. They lived there for about 10 years. But then Mahlon and Chilion both died as well, leaving Naomi without her husband and her sons. Naomi was left heartbroken and bitter and decided to return to her homeland of Bethlehem, for she had heard that the Lord had provided food for his people there. Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "My daughters-in-law, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you, as you have shown to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you find rest in the home of another husband." But Orpah refused at first and said, "No, we will return with you to your people." Naomi then replied, "Why should you go with me? I have nothing left to offer you. No more sons, no more hope. Go back, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband, and even if I had hope, would you wait for my sons to grow up? No, my daughters, my life is too bitter for you." With much weeping, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye and returned to Moab. But Ruth clung to Naomi, refusing to leave her side, and said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." Seeing Ruth's determination, Naomi stopped urging her. Together they journeyed to Bethlehem. Upon their arrival, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women of the town exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" She replied, "Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." But even in her bitterness, God had a plan. It was the beginning of the barley harvest when Naomi and Ruth arrived in Bethlehem. Ruth, desiring to provide for them, asked Naomi for permission to go to the fields and glean behind anyone in whose eyes she might find favor. In those days, the poor and the foreigners were allowed to follow the harvesters and gather leftover grain, a practice ordained by the law of Moses to ensure that even the most vulnerable were provided for. And so Ruth said, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Naomi agreed, and Ruth went to work in a field that belonged to Boaz, a wealthy man from the clan of Elimelech. As she worked, Boaz came to the field and noticed her. He asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She asked if she could glean and has been working steadily since morning." Boaz approached Ruth and said, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. Whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Overwhelmed by his kindness, Ruth bowed down and asked, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Ruth worked in Boaz's fields through the entire harvest season, and Naomi noticed the favor Boaz showed Ruth. Naomi, seeking security for Ruth, advised her to approach Boaz in a particular way. According to the custom of the time, she instructed Ruth to wash, perfume herself, and put on her best clothes. Then she was to go down to the threshing floor, but not let Boaz know she was there until he had finished eating and drinking. Naomi told Ruth to lie down at his feet when he was asleep, as a sign of her seeking his protection and provision. Ruth did as Naomi instructed. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke up, startled to find a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. Ruth replied, "I am your servant Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer of our family." Ruth's actions were not merely symbolic, they held deep cultural significance. In Israelite society, the role of the kinsman redeemer was vital. The kinsman redeemer had the responsibility to preserve the family lineage by marrying the widow of a deceased relative. This ensured that the deceased's name and inheritance would not disappear from Israel. Boaz, impressed by her loyalty and courage, assured her that he would do all that she asked. However, there was a kinsman redeemer closer than him who had the first right to redeem the land that had belonged to Naomi's husband and to marry Ruth. Boaz promised to resolve the matter the next day. The next morning, Boaz went to the town gate and waited for the closer kinsman redeemer. When the man arrived, Boaz explained the situation. The kinsman redeemer initially agreed to buy the land, but when Boaz mentioned that it came with the responsibility of marrying Ruth the Moabite, he declined, fearing it would endanger his own estate. Boaz then declared in the presence of the town elders that he would redeem the land and take Ruth as his wife. The elders and all the people who were there witnessed the agreement and blessed their union. So Boaz took Ruth as his wife. In time, Ruth bore a son named Obed. The women of Bethlehem celebrated with Naomi, saying, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Naomi took Obed in her arms and cared for him as her own. Obed would later become the grandfather of King David, establishing Ruth, the Moabite, in the lineage of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. And so, from sorrow to joy, the story of Ruth reflects the power of faithfulness, loyalty, and God's providence, a tale of redemption that echoes through the ages. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share to help spread this beautiful story of faith, loyalty, and redemption.